Welcome back to Giant Monster Games. My name is Adrian. It's been a while because, as you can see, I have a different microphone. Today, we are doing Budget Tier 1, and we are doing Affinity, such as this $60 or 10-tick budget Affinity deck. I'm going to be showing you all the things that go into this deck, and then how to upgrade it into this $1,000, yeah, that's right, $1,000, or 300-tick version of the deck. So let's jump straight in. Starting off with, we are an artifact aggro deck, so we want some artifact creatures. We have Ornithopter and Signal Pest as our first two cards. Ornithopter is literally just a 0/2 flyer. Signal Pest, when Signal Pest attacks other creatures we control, get +1/+0. Gonna help us with our aggro package. Next, we have Etched Champion and Vault Skirge. Etched Champion, as you can probably guess because we have a lot of artifacts, is going to be protection from colors. So we can use it to block for days and attack through almost anything, which is gonna be fantastic. Vault Skirge has lifelink, which is really, really relevant. And we can also play it for 1 mana, which is why we're playing it. Also, flying is not irrelevant. It is definitely something we want to keep an eye on. Next, we do have a couple of lords in the deck. We have Master of Etherium and Chief of the Foundry. Other artifact creatures we control get +1/+1 by both of these lords, which is fantastic. And then Master of Etherium is actually really cool because it also has +1/+1 for each artifact, or its power and toughness, I should say, are equal to the number of artifacts we control. Being an artifact aggro deck, you get the idea. The last two creatures we have Hope of Ghirapur and Master Thopterist. So both of these are kind of funny little flex spots for us. Hope of the Ghirapur, or the Thopter Hope card, allows us to basically shut down instant sorcery speed decks because we can sacrifice it and then our opponent can't cast instant and sorcery spells, or non-creature spells is really what it is, until our next turn, which is quite funny. You can basically shut down Storm, shut down a bunch of other really decks, which is, I think it's neat. I didn't really ever think of playing this, especially in the main deck. And then in our deck, our build of the deck, the budget version, is literally a token generator for us because it's generating 1/1 colorless Thopter tokens, which is awesome. We have other things, not just creatures, in the artifact slots. We have Cranial Plating and Springleaf Drum. So Springleaf Drum, we may tap it and tap an untapped creature we control to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool, so we can ramp ourselves if we need to, if we play this on, say, turn 1 and then play a, Ornithopter, yada yada yada. Cranial Plating, on the other hand, oh boy, is the spicy one. So, 1, we can pay 1 to equip it, or we can pay 2 black and equip it to a creature at instant speed, which is really fun. And then equipped creature gets +1/+0 for each artifact we control. I'm gonna let you figure out why that's awesome. Now, we do have some instants and sorceries, so let's talk about the instants and sorcery package. Starting out, we have Galvanic Blast, Metallic Rebuke, and Thoughtcast. So this version of the deck, the deck I'm basing this off of, is actually slides into like the control package a little bit, which is a little bit weird. Normally, you see Galvanic Blast. You see Galvanic Blast in a lot of decks, so it is deal 2 damage for 1 red mana, deal 4 damage if you control 3 or more artifacts. And then Thoughtcast is a little bit more of a budgety kind of card as well. It has affinity of artifacts, you get to draw 2 cards, so it's going to ramp you. But Metallic Rebuke is the card that is new to me, seeing it in these affinity decks, because essentially it is a mana leak, but for 1 blue mana, because you can just use it to improvise, you can tap artifacts you control, so I thought it was really cool to put it in this version of the deck. Moving over to the land package now, we have Darksteel Citadel and Inventors Fair as our utility lands. Well, I say utility lands. Darksteel Citadel is just an artifact land, which is why we're playing it. Inventors Fair is a utility land. Whenever we play an artifact, if we have 3 or more already in play, we gain a life, which is nice. And we can also sack it to go and fetch up other artifacts. If we need a lord, if we need a Signal Pest, whatever, we can sack it to go and get another artifact, which is fantastic. And then we have 4 copies of Shivan Reef, because we need some mana fixing. And then we have 4 islands, 4 mountains, and a swamp. Now, if you're going to be taking this out to an FNM, you're going to want a sideboard, so let's quickly, in alphabetical order, go over the sideboard. We have Ancient Grudge helping us deal with the Mirror Match, or Lantern Control, I guess, dealing with artifacts, always nice. Crumbled to Dust is helping us deal with Tron. I'm not super sold on this card, but it did work when I've been playing it, so it's in here still. Then we have Dampening Sphere, also helping us with Tron and other big mana decks. Duress helping us out with Storm and a bunch of other sorcery-based decks. Ghirapur Aether Grid is helping us deal with control matchups, because as we play artifacts, we gotta do passive damage. Negate, dealing with non-creature spells. Obviously, Shrapnel Blast, which is actually gonna help us get through some bigger matches, specifically against spirits or humans. 4 copies of Tormod's Crypt, because graveyard-based decks are usually really bad matchups for us. And then Whip Flare, dealing 2 damage to each non-artifact creature. You guys know how that works out. We are an artifact deck, so non-artifact based creature decks, goodbye. And that is the entire deck. If you want to pick this deck up in paper, or any deck on the channel for that matter, go over to Flipside Gaming, use promo code GiantMonsterGames to get 10% off your online purchase. Or if you want to buy this deck on MTGO, there's a link below to Card Hoarder where you can quickly pick up this entire deck fast and easy. Also, both of these help out the channel directly, so I can keep making videos just like this for you guys. Now let's take a look at the $1,000 or 300 tick non-budget version of this deck. The two cards that are completely different. We have Arcbound Ravager and Mox Opal. Talking about Mox Opal first, it is a $100 card right now. It is a mana ramp card, it costs 0, it comes into play. If you have 3 or more artifacts, you can tap it for 1 land. Cool, 1 land, 1 mana, not lands. You don't tap mana things for lands. What is that all about? And then Arcbound Ravager is the beater of all beater cards. You may sacrifice another artifact or a artifact. You can sacrifice itself, technically. And then you get to put a 1/1 counter on Arcbound Ravager, and it has modular. So, which means when it dies, you get to move those counters to another artifact creature. As you can guess, you can just be sacking off stuff. Your opponent, you chump block, or your opponent tries to pass something, you can sacrifice it to Arcbound Ravager, get counters on it. If your opponent's going to blow up Arcbound Ravager, you're going to sacrifice it and put all those counters on Vault Skirge or Ornithopter, and now you have a XX flying creature. So Arcbound Ravager is a key piece to this deck. It is such a key piece that there is actually some lands that this plays very, very well with, and that is going to be, we have Glimmervoid, Inkmoth Nexus, and Blinkmoth Nexus. Obviously, Glimmervoid is just you just need to have artifacts, otherwise you have to sacrifice it. It produces mana and color, which is very cool. And then the Inkmoth/Blinkmoth combo. I say Inkmoth and Blinkmoth, but realistically, Inkmoth Nexus is actually the most important one here, because Inkmoth Nexus turns into a 1/1 artifact creature with flying and infect. So the big trick with this deck, especially with the non-budget version of the deck, is you're going to put a bunch of counters on Arcbound Ravager, and then you're going to swing with your Inkmoth Nexus, and then your opponents say, I can't block it because it's flying or whatever, and then you sacrifice Arcbound Ravager to itself, throwing a whole bunch of counters onto Inkmoth Nexus, dealing 10 damage and infect to your opponent, and they lose the game. That's the entire deck. Let's actually take a look at what you upgrade. There's not a ton of cards to upgrade, but let's take a look at what you actually upgrade if you want to upgrade this exact version of the deck. So, starting out, Arcbound Ravager and Mox Opal, you can take out Chief of the Foundry, and you can take out Thoughtcasts and a Shivan Reef. And then Glimmervoid, you can actually take out a Swamp and a Mountain if you want to play that. And then Blinkmoth and Inkmoth Nexus, you can take out 3 islands, 2 mountains, and 3 Shivan Reefs. That is the entire deck. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. My name's Aiden, this is Giant Monster Games. Thanks for watching. I already said that. And don't forget to game like a giant monster. Also, throwing a giant shout out to all of the Patreons. Thanks for supporting while I've been out of commission replacing my mic, which has been a bigger pain in my butt than I would like to honestly admit.